But there is a new stadium coming to Chicago, and it's got nothing to do with the Bears. It's got nothing to do with the White Sox. I'm sure to the dismay of Jerry Reinsdorf, who wanted us to pay for his stadium at the site of the 78.
Of course.
Joe Mansueto, Northwest Indiana's very own.
Munster
Indiana.
product, just in case you didn't know it.
Started his company from a Lincoln Park, his Lincoln Park apartment in 1984, Jurko. And 40 years later, Joe Mansueto is
he's wealthy.
A billionaire.
Yeah.
Many times over.
He is wealthy.
And a few years ago, he bought the Chicago Fire.
Mm-hmm.
And now he is building his own new stadium, soccer only, for the Fire, in the South Loop at the site of the 78. That's what they call it. That's think of like Canal and Roosevelt, basically, but by the tracks and the river there. And he's paying for it himself. How refreshing. Jerry Reinsdorf was asking the state and the people to pay for his new stadium, which is still the height of lunacy and just hilarious for how little he's actually given back in terms of what the White Sox have accomplished over the 50 years or whatever it is, 40-plus years that he's owned the club, that he wanted us to build him a new stadium. Joe Mansueto's doing this himself after nearly a decade of big swings and misses, including a recent failed bid to build a new White Sox ballpark. The 78 and developer Related Midwest have finally found an anchor tenant to kickstart the proposed mixed-use mega development in the South Loop. The Fire announced plans for a privately financed $650 million stadium at the mostly vacant 62-acre site along the river at Roosevelt Road, giving the team a world-class home and potentially turning the former rail yard into a bustling Southside Wrigleyville.
Wasn't their original home in Bridgeview, where there's a soccer-only stadium right there?
Yes. It's about the same capacity, I'm guessing. I don't know that for sure.
Yeah,
but Toyota Park seemed about that, maybe a little less.
It held about 25,000 people.
Did it? Oh, so maybe even held a little bit more.
Yeah, 20, 25.
Yeah, Mansueto moved them immediately when he bought the team.
Yeah,
he wanted to be downtown.
Soldier Field.
Yes.
Right away.
Now, they can't sell out Soldier Field. They do well. They draw about 22,000 a game. So that's why they've proposed a 22,000-seat stadium. He is going to pay for it. He said, "It is my belief that these stadiums should be privately financed." He said that teams should foot the bill for their own stadiums. The devil's always in the details, as Jurko says. Who knows what other little, when we really read the fine print, if we find out the state's contributing something in terms of infrastructure around.
I imagine
don't know.
roads. I mean, somebody's going to build the roads.
I mean, roads are there. I don't know how much road you can build.
Well,
You've got a rail yard on one side and a river on the other.
Don't you have to have some sort of in access and out access?
Yeah, egress, regress, right? But they already, I don't know. That's a good point. Like how that all looks in terms of getting people in and out of there outside of the existing infrastructure.
Remember the water taxis, the great water taxi idea?
Well, they still, the people use those, I think, for work, but I don't know that they'll ever. I don't know. I'm much more likely to go see a soccer game there than at Soldier Field. I'll tell you that.
That's true.
The rendering is cool. I don't know if you saw it. It looks like one of those European.
Tough part is getting in or getting out.
Yeah, it still will be.
Soldier Field. No, I'm saying Soldier Field.
Yeah, and that'll still be tough.
Because you're in for a mile walk.
Yes.
Unless you're parking, right there.
Yeah.
You're in for a mile walk.
Unless you're like on the Waldron deck. Right.
Exactly.
You're in for about a mile walk.
Yeah, this has got a very European feel to it. Yeah.
It's kind of cool.
Yeah, button up right against some apartment building right there. My heavens, they might be able to see some of the action from up there. Do you think they're going to charge them?
That's why he's calling it a Southside Wrigleyville.
Yeah.
Maybe. Sylvie and I, years ago, we used to always say, boy, if the White Sox had the vision back in the late 80s, early 90s when they were building the new stadium, they should have thought about this parcel of property. This is before they had... Remember, the Home Depot and the Dominick's and the mall and everything else. We said if
there by Roosevelt,
they would have had some vision. You could have been real close to downtown. You're still on the south side.
You would have opened up the stadium to see the downtown area.
Exactly.
Yes.
You could have been right there downtown on the water. You're south of Madison. That's technically the south side, right?
Yeah, theoretically.
Everything is a south address once you get south of Madison. You would have been south of it. You're at 1200 South for crying out loud at Roosevelt Road.
What's that, 23 blocks? I mean, really? It's not that far.
1,200.
That's from 35th.
Oh, yeah, from 35th, exactly.
23 blocks.
Yeah, right.
Barely 3 miles.
You're not that far.
Yeah, you're right there.
But they never did that, and that's funny. All these years later, Reinsdorf pivoted to that idea, but he will not be getting a new stadium.
Remember who used to own that piece of property, right?
I don't.
Wasn't that a group led by Tony Resco?
Resco. I believe Resco did.
Mm-hmm. You okay?
Yep.
Uncle Tony?
Yeah. Oh,
I didn't think you wanted me to say that, Adam.
I don't
is
care.
that what you were thinking? Is that right?
I didn't think you wanted me to say that.
Is that Uncle Tony?
Uncle Tony Resco?
Have
yes.
you visited him?
Oh, we've been together for a while. He's been free man.
He's been a free man for a little
he's
while.
out.
He's
Oh,
no
yeah.
longer in the pokey?
Yeah, no.
Okay.
Uncle Tony.
Uncle Tony's out. Good.
Last season, the Fire averaged 21,327 fans. They do feel like most of their games now will be a sellout.
That'd be a great interview, by the way, Uncle Tony.
Uncle Tony Resco, you think?
Get Uncle Tony in here to see where all the bodies are buried.
Mansueto's a good interview. I interviewed Mansueto for a podcast we did once.
I did not know that.
Back in the day.
Did you?
Yes. I said, I think you're the second billionaire I've ever shook hands with.
Right.
The other being Mark Cuban. Another guy, I don't think I've pressed the flesh with a lot of billionaires in my life, Yerk. Tom Ricketts. Is Tom Ricketts a billionaire, though? Like liquid billionaire?
He is now.
Is he?
Well, I mean, liquid billionaire is different.
Right.
Than,
I mean, like
billionaire.
full on, like if he needed to give you $1 billion, he could. Like Mansueto could give you $1 billion. Like he's got it.
Pull out of the bank? Is that what you're telling me?
I think you go get it out of the bank.
I think Ricketts would need a couple days, but he probably could.
Carm, rich people, their money's in play all the time.
I know.
They hardly ever have liquid
But
capital
I think he
of $1
could
billion.
get access.
I got you,
You
but
know what
it's
I
in
mean?
play. But even
Yeah.
if you had to wait 6 months, they
Yeah.
can get access to
Yeah.
it. My point is, billionaires don't hold a
No, I
ton
know,
of
of
liquidity.
It wouldn't make sense.
Their money is in play. Whatever, it's making money.
But I did say that to
what
Joe.
it's
He
doing.
just kind of laughed.
Yeah.
I said, "You're the second billionaire I've ever shook hands with." Is it? It's shook hands, right? Yeah,
I believe
shook
so.
hands. Yeah.
It's not shaked hands.
You shake hands.
Shaken?
Have you shake hands with a lot of billionaires? A guy
Saad
like
Khan.
you?
Saad Khan.
Saad Khan. There you go. Nice.
Saad
Yeah.
Khan would
Saad's
be
a billionaire.
The one guy off the top of my head that I would know that, yes, that
Not
guy has
often. You don't meet a
billions.
billionaire
Yes.
every day.
No, you don't.
You know.
And we're on the back of his yacht, 300-foot
Yeah.
yacht, the Kismet, in the St. John River.
300-foot.
300-foot. It's a beauty. You can look it up, man. It's got a helicopter
What
pad.
kind of
It's got all
party
types
you
of
have on a
stuff.
300-foot
He's got
yacht?
2 boats on the inside. I showed you those
You
pictures.
showed me the pictures.
2 boats on the
It's-
inside.
it's awesome.
That the doors open up and the boats just get cantilevered out. You know, they got them little doohickeys on.
It is
And they
awesome.
just lay them in the water.
You did show me a picture when you got back from that
Yeah,
trip.
it was beauteous.
Last year, the White Sox proposed a new publicly funded ballpark at the 78, but Springfield lawmakers, I can't even get through it without laughing. Springfield lawmakers balked at the idea of contributing a reported $1 billion to a team that never wins. No, that I dropped that commentary in myself. Adam texted me this morning. He said, "What does this mean for the Sox?" I said, "What does it mean?"
Nothing.
Nothing. They've got a ballpark that's perfectly suitable and fine.
They got a ballpark.
And when they do well, guess what?
It fills up.
People go to that ballpark.
Yep.
White Sox fans go when they do well.
Yeah, they've got no problem with the facilities.
I don't think so.
I don't think there's any problems with the facilities. I think they're fine.
You know, it's relatively easy to get in and out of. Relatively,
It is.
I mean, it's still in a neighborhood, but it's relatively easy.
Carm, it's a lot easier to get in and out of the rate than it is in any other stadium.
Yeah, other than maybe the UC. The UC is pretty easy. You got to.
Well, it used to be fan friendly. I don't know how you can get close. How close you can get anymore. I mean, they still got the usual
Especially 'cause
parking.
they're ripping up the
but
parking.
they ate up a bunch of
Yeah.
that parking with those new buildings they got.
Yeah, I don't think Sox fans have a problem with the stadium. They've done the one thing I'll give Jerry credit for. He at least he finally listened to the fans and he responded and he changed what was a real eyesore when he first opened it. I mean, it was terrible.
Yeah.
And they've made it a better looking park and a great fan experience. You never hear White Sox fans complain about the park.
No, they've got no issues with the park.
Zero.
They got issues with the owner.
Yes.
Yeah. And
The fact that the team doesn't win.
with the team sucking, that's a problem also.
So does this
Is
mean
the Michael Reese site too small for them?
For who?
For the White Sox? If we all
if
assume
the Bears
we're
could
all
build
assuming
there, why-
we're all assuming the Bears are going to leave. Okay, so here's I might be wrong. White Sox fans can tell me if I'm wrong. If there wasn't parking, would White Sox fans still go to games the way Bears fans would go to games?
why?
Like
You
one
saying
of the
that-
appeals
of
of
a
going
White-
to
of
the
a
White
White
Sox
Sox
game
game is you
is
can
that
tailgate.
you can tailgate.
A lot of people
you can
tailgate.
park, and a lot of them come from the southern suburbs, the western suburbs, and they go to games. If you had a Wrigley-like experience where you had to take the train in, or you had to walk, or you had to do what Bears fans have to do and walk a mile and a half or however long it is to get to your stadium, and the team
I think
was
it'd be
this
harder. I
bad,
think it's a harder sell.
would you get Sox fans to do that?
I think that's a much harder sell. Look, they don't really pack it in anyway because they've been bad and they've aggravated their fan base. But there is a convenience to it, to Adam's point. I don't know that it means anything for the White Sox. I don't know why they need a new stadium. I don't know all the parameters of the deal, what he signed, the years, what it is. I mean, the state technically owns, right? The state, that sports authority that you always talk about, that the state created, owns the facility.
The Illinois Sports Authority.
The Illinois
Isn't that
Sports
what it
Authority.
is?
I think that's exactly what it is, yeah. I don't know what all the parameters are. I don't know why they feel like they would need a new stadium. There's nothing wrong with Rate Field. Nothing. The only thing that's wrong is the product. And that's got nothing to do with the ballpark. Sure, would it be ideal if it was turned and it faced downtown? Yeah. That'd be nice, but okay. I mean, you get over that. There's nothing wrong with it. Why do they need a new stadium?
They don't.
They don't. And where they would move, do they, how badly do those developers want something at the Michael Reese site that they might move to? I mean, that would be fine. You're still on the south side, maybe a little bit trickier to get to. Not maybe a little. I think it is trickier to get to, but okay, you deal with it. But the idea that they get public money for building a stadium is beyond laughable, and I don't think he can do it any other way. I don't think he wants to. Maybe a new owner at some point. Maybe a new billionaire owner will come in and he'll do what Joe Mansueto just did. He'll say, no, we'll build it. I got 1.5 bill carved out. I don't know what these baseball stadiums cost. The football stadium's going to be more. They're putting a dome on it. It's going to be more expensive. You're not going to dome the baseball stadium. Nope. I don't know. What would it cost? You're $1.5, $2 billion, whatever it would cost. It's going to be more than a 22,000-seat soccer-only stadium that's not even pushing. Maybe when it's all said and done, it pushes $750 million. But maybe a billionaire owner comes in, takes control. Like the Ishbia brothers come in, and they're like, no, we got it. That'd be a welcome relief. And if they really want to build a new one and move it somewhere else on the south side, so be it.
Yeah, that's
maybe
fine.
it is the Michael Reese site. I don't know. Do it yourself is what I would
problem.
say.
Yeah.
And maybe they would say that. But the White Sox will not be getting anything at the 78, which first, it was about a year and a half ago, maybe 18 months ago that those reports first came to light. They will be not. They will not be moving there.
Were
There will
there
be
drawings?
No,
Yeah,
there were.
there?
Yes, and and
were
Jerry
plans.
went to Springfield. Remember, Mr. Smith goes to Washington.
He tried to beat everybody to the punch.
He did.
To get the financing.
But the Fire win at the end of the day, and at least as far as we can tell, Mansueto says he is paying for it, and they will be building a soccer only. It will not be a mixed-use stadium. Does this mean anything for the Bears? Probably not. The Bears are still going to try to get what they want in terms of tax certainty and maybe some public money for the infrastructure in the surrounding complex that is going to be built, the entertainment district. We would assume Arlington Heights. I don't think it really means much. It's nice that Mansueto's doing this on his own, but I still think at the end of the day, the Bears might get what they want from the state. It just won't be this year, but at some point down the line, it might happen. I don't think it really means anything in the grand scheme of things of how they're going to build their stadium. Do you?
No. You're talking about the Bears, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. The Bears are going to do what they want to do up there.
Yeah.
And they've got to remember the things that they can get in there if they do the stadium correctly.
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying? And then as far as being able to generate revenue 365 days a year, that's what that whole Arlington project is about.
Yeah, it is.
You see what they're doing? They've been buying out everything in Wrigleyville.
Yeah.
And they've changed the landscape of what that used to look like.
The idea would be the same where Mansueto's building this new stadium. It won't be at the same scale, of course.
Right. If
but
you left
the idea is the same.
15 years ago and came back to Wrigley, you wouldn't recognize the place. You wouldn't know what the hell's going on.
Not at all.
A few pieces you would recognize, but there's been a metamorphosis over there of what's changed.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping whatever the Bears do up there will be something to the likings of where every day they're generating cash and they're bringing it in so they can compete for free agents a little bit better than they have.
Yeah, if you hadn't been to Wrigley Field since 2013, and you went back today,
you'd be like,
12
what
years later,
hell?
you'd be stunned.
Yeah.
You'd be absolutely floored.
Yeah.
312-332-3776 if you want to jump in, if you've got a thought. Stadium issue stuff. I don't know. George, actually, Eminem George? He thinks the Sox need a new stadium? I'm surprised at that.
Oh.
Georgie, what's up, George?
Hey, the problem with the stadium is twofold. One is that, when they do have a product, the traffic is unbearable. It could take you 45 minutes to an hour to exit the Dan Ryan and get to where you're going. I have great parking, and sometimes it takes me 45 minutes. So it's really, really difficult when they're busy. Now, right now, when there's no product, there's no fans, and it's easy getting in and out. It's a piece of cake. But when it's busy, you want them to have a better team, and when they do, it's unbearable getting in and out.
Isn't that like that Isn't that like that at every big stadium, though, George? If there's 40,000 plus people going, I mean, isn't that kind of par for the course in a lot of ways?
Yes, but the White Sox, it's particularly bad there because they don't have a system in place. They don't have. In Kansas City, when you go to the Kansas City game, it could be completely full, and they have circular parking. You circle the park, and your parking pass gets you in a certain place. And because they share the stadium with the Chiefs, they share the parking with the Chiefs. Their parking is superb.
Yeah, I
It's
can see
excellent.
that.
No matter how busy they are, you could get in there. It's just so difficult here when it's moderately busy.
Yeah.
And the other thing, being landlocked, there's nothing to do. Part of what makes Wrigley the most interesting and attractive ballpark in the world, it's old and tired and falling down, but what makes it so vibrant and exciting is that it's in the middle of a community. And while there's no parking at Wrigley, a lot of people would rather go to Wrigley for the experience because they could do things before the game, after the game. They could walk. They could do a million different things.
Well,
the White Sox Park is just landlocked. There's nothing to do.
Wrigley is definitely.
Those are the two things why you'd want to move it to get a better experience for the fans.
All right, and George is there all the time. That's the M&M guy. That's our guy, George. George is there all the time.
Yeah.
Now, Wrigley's a pretty unique ballpark / stadium experience. Let's face it. Kansas City, I've been there. I've been in that footprint. It's enormous.
Yes.
Enormous. It's these two huge stadiums on a huge plot of land.
It's a stadium campus.
It's just, yeah, right. It's
like Philadelphia. Philadelphia has a stadium campus.
They do, but this is even more sprawling, Yerk, because it's not in, Philly's still in a downtownish area.
Right.
This is away from the city center in Kansas City. They've got so much land and so much acreage. It's kind of crazy. I don't know that any Chicago team can match that. I mean, I think that's why the Bears are going to Arlington, to be big and bold, and they've got all that land. In the city, that's really hard in Chicago to be able to replicate. I have it easy, I guess, in a sense. I mean, I come down 55th, Yerk. I get off at that Damon Ashland exit. I get on Archer. Yeah. I get myself over to 31st Street. And George is right. Trying to navigate the Ryan when it's busy, that's kind of a pain in the ass. I don't have to do that, so I guess I have it lucky. Or I'm always one to be like, oh, no, if I get stuck in a miserable traffic experience once, I'm always thinking, how can I circumvent this? What surface streets can I take? What back road can I go? Which different way? I'm always thinking that way because I hate sitting in traffic.
They've gone about the business of cutting 35th off, right? So 35th Street's not available for you anymore the way it used to be. So if you're getting to the parking lots, you've got to go on 31st Street, and you've got to go on 39th Street to be able to get into those parking lots.
You might be right about that.
Yeah, and
you can access 35th because they stop the traffic, but I don't think you can get in the lots.
Yeah.
Off at 35th.
No more lots, yeah.
I think you're right.
When you could get in, right there where the players parked early on when our guy Joe Stangaroni was there.
Yeah.
Boom, right there, easy peasy Japanesey, right?
Yeah.
Or you can go into that C lot right there off 35th, but you can't enter those lots off of 35th
I don't think you can. That's true. I always come from a different way for where I live, so it's a little bit easier. I don't have to mess with the Ryan. I mean, my route to the raid is pretty easy. Let's say I had a Brian in Naperville. What's going on, Brian?
Hey, guys. I was calling in about the White Sox stadium. Yeah, you guys are absolutely right. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that stadium. It compares to just about any other MLB stadium out there. I think there was an article out there at ranked 12th. But the real big deal about Reinsdorf wanting a new ballpark is because of the agreement that he struck when they built that new stadium with the Illinois Sports Authority. He doesn't pay a lease.
Right.
if there's X amount of tickets that aren't, sold by.
Yeah, if
And
he doesn't
so
hit a threshold, he doesn't pay, right?
Exactly. And that deal's going to run out in 2029. So, the clock is ticking for him to get a new deal going. Otherwise, he's going to be forced to actually put together a baseball team so that they can actually fill the stands.
And I guess, Brian, the other part of it, and I think we may have had this conversation when we first started talking about it because we thought it was laughable that he's asking for public money to build him a new stadium, 30 years later. And thanks for the phone call, Brian. Part of it is probably, and Jerry might have hinted at this even, or at least it was reported that he was hinting at this to those close to him, that he knows the value goes up and that the family will sell it upon his death. Jerry's late 80s at this point. You're not going to live forever.
He's up there.
And he knows the family is not going to hold on to it the way they're going to hold on to the Bulls. They will sell the controlling interest, and it becomes more valuable with a stadium, right? And there's also the aspect of, is there some inheritance tax that's going to kick in when Jerry passes?
Know. As you and I have both said, I'm sure there's ways to get around everything.
Right, I'm sure there is.
And they've already prepared.
But you can also deduct monies that you've committed to a stadium project off of what the government will tax. So maybe Jerry's thinking, hey, if this happens in the next couple of years and I've committed X amount of dollars, if I've committed $600 million and, I'm asking for another, let's say, billion that I want the taxpayers to pay for, but I've committed $500 or $600 million, they deduct that off of, I believe that's how it works.
89.
He's 89 years old.
89 years old. He'll be 90 next year.
So, Brian, that's probably part of it. Yeah, he's worried about the lease, and he's worried about the family selling it and having the asset go up in value with control of its own stadium, unlike the deal that they have right now.
And it's the Illinois Sports Facilities.
That's it, the Illinois Sports Facility. That's it. Darren's in Des Plaines. What's up, Darren?
Guys, what's happening? So my thinking is what's going to happen at Soldier Field after the Bears leave, and they're going to open up their entire new, Bears venue, which is going to be 365. The Fire's going to leave. They're going to open up their new venue, which is going to be on the lake. So we've got two fixed incomes that we're no longer going to have at Soldier Field. So at best, they're going to be an NC2A kind of tournament place and then taking on concerts. But the Bears are going to end up taking on some of those concerts. Sure. Wrigley's already taken on those concerts. What happens to Soldier Field after all this happens in 10 years? And as I'm sitting on the phone and I'm listening, and the White Sox are looking for a place, maybe Chicago decides that, hey, we do need another venue on the lake, and this could be a good venue for the White Sox.
Maybe, Darren, I don't know. I mean, it no longer has its landmark status. Like, does the stadium just go away at some point?
Didn't the renderings of the new Bears stadium have them knocking down everything except for the columns?
Yeah, and then
making it like a park space?
Yeah. Maybe that happens. Maybe they still do a concert/college football, high school football, NCAA hockey, which they've done before. Maybe they use it as a mixed purpose facility like that. Now, is that worth the operating cost? I'm not exactly sure.
I don't know. It's already built, so it's not like you got to do much to it anyway. It would be standing there, right?
I mean, staffing
the upkeep of the facilities.
Right.
That's what you're asking about.
Yeah, and the operating cost of like a game day
But
staff.
I mean, if you can have, like you did the one year with Taylor Swift, you can have her do 8 concerts here or somebody do concerts. I think if over the course of a summer you can do from May 1st until October 1st. That's a lot of time you've got in there, 150 days in there, where you can go ahead and have yourself 40 concerts.
Right, yeah.
You don't really care about the field, do you? Not really.
No, not anymore.
So if you're doing this just as in a concert venue, a major stadium tours.
Yep.
Like if there's ever a new Metallica.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they come and do a stadium tour.
Yeah, but if I'm a big band, I'm going to Arlington because it's closer to the airport and it's a bigger stadium and I can sell more tickets.
And it's indoors.
And it can be indoors.
Well, the new one's going to be domed. I mean,
that's my point. Is that it can be like if it
but it's
rains,
not going to be retractable.
Right. Yes. No, yeah. It will be indoors. I think that's
it will
the
be.
thing.
Yeah, it will be indoors. Yeah.
Right.
So like you don't have to worry about what. Beyonce had to worry about a couple weeks
Right.
ago, where she couldn't
Lightning.
start till 10 o'clock.
Not sure what it looks
Lightning
like.
crashes and an old mother
And
dies.
we know that Wrigley has upped the price to play there.
Yes,
so
they have.
we'll see what Arlington
But there's no
charges.
money. Tom Ricketts does not make
no
money.
We're,
Doesn't
we're
make a
getting
dime.
we're getting an extra $1 million per concert, but there's no
I'm surprised
money.
he doesn't live the life of a pauper out on the corner begging for change.
I don't know how he lives.